I'm Rachel Wade, and welcome to All of Us. Thank you so much for being here with us. All of Us is a place where everyday women are meeting, we're telling our stories, sharing our highs and our lows, and recounting the goodness of God and pointing it back to Christ. So with that, I am so excited to have my friend Cindy here. Cindy, could you introduce yourself to the All of Us family?
Yes, I'm Cindy Chu. I'm 36 years old. I have 2 little kids. I'm a lawyer, and I live in San Francisco.
Cool. Any hobbies? What are the things that you enjoy to do in your free time?
So my biggest hobby is reading, and probably the only thing really I have time for these days.
I was going to say, in all your free time.
Yes.
Cindy, she is a frequent flyer, or at least to me she is. And she frequents one of the bookstores in the United Terminal at SFO. So if you know of that terminal, maybe you'll run into her and see her there.
They have a lot of my money.
Which is so funny. I love when you post about that. But anyway, tell us a little bit about your Jesus journey. How did you begin to know Christ?
So I'm Taiwanese. My parents immigrated from Taiwan as students. They were not Christians. And when we moved to the Chicago area, which is when I was around 6 or 7, they joined a small Taiwanese church there and became Christians. So my brother and I grew up going to church, kind of learning about God in a Christian community. We both had our own separate faith journeys. Just because you grew up in a church doesn't mean you know God or trust in Him. But I think in high school and college and beyond, kind of each step of the way, I really found community that challenged me, that met me where I was, that kind of knew what I was going through at each stage of life, and enabled me to grow and to continue to walk with God.
Oh, I love that. We all know how much, the local church is important, and that's how you and I met. Cindy and I met at our mom's group at our local church here in San Francisco, Epic Church. And one of the things that I always admired about Cindy is, first of all, she's funny. And she's got a smile that's gorgeous. But I also loved how, a lot of the moms that are in our moms group, specifically at our church, are moms that work inside the home. But you were like, I'm a lawyer, and I have decided to make the decision to work outside of the home. And so how you were, loving and wanting to be with your children, but at the same time, you were like, I also have my career, and my career is important to me, and doing that, I just loved how you hold those so beautifully to me, and it's very encouraging. So with that, with you being a lawyer, have you always wanted to be a lawyer? Were you the kid that was like, when I grow up, I want to be a lawyer? Speak to that, and then also, were there people that encouraged you along the way down that path?
Yeah, so I was not that kid. I was not the kind of like To Kill a Mockingbird, ideals, like civil rights kid. I was not interested or intending to go into the legal field at all until after I graduated from college. I was looking for a job in New York and found this job at a small law firm, thought it looked interesting, and took it. And so my first experience with law was not really with like the law as a concept, but with the very practical experience of working in the legal profession. And so I learned what it's like, to be a lawyer day to day, when it's stressful, when it's fun. I learned my own limits, like what I can handle, what I like. And through that experience, like, oh, okay, like I was like, I think I could do this. And so then decided to apply to law school, and here I am. And I think along the way, especially at that first law firm, there were people that kind of like mentored me and let me get a view into what it's like to be a lawyer, and that really helped.
Would you say that being a lawyer is your passion? Like if you were to go back, you are a lawyer, but was there something else that you were passionate about?
Yeah, so it's not my passion. It's actually something that I think has really helped me be a good lawyer, is that my passion really lies elsewhere. It's more narrative and storytelling, which is why I love reading. But what I found about law is that I'm good at law. Like God, I knew from the beginning that I would be a good lawyer, and that God had made me to be a good lawyer. I had the right skill set. I was kind of smart in the right way that you need to be a lawyer. And at the time, if I went after my passions, maybe I would have wanted to be an editorial assistant or a literary agent. But now looking back after 7 years, having gone through law school and just seeing all the ways that God has led me in my career, I can appreciate and understand, at a very deep level, that the legal profession has really suited me.
And I love that, Cindy, because here lies, we have these passions that God gives us and He puts in our hearts, but He also gives us skills and abilities and connections to different, people and different avenues. But would you say that the purpose is the same, but your calling may look different in different than what you thought that it may look like, or that those are two separate things?
Yeah, like, absolutely. So our purpose is, the same, wherever we live, whatever we do, and whatever, culture we live in. It is to know God, to worship Him, to enjoy Him, to bring His kingdom on earth. But the way that He calls us to do that for every person is very different. Yes. And it is different not only between people, but it's different between what your expectation is and who God really is and what He's doing in the world. And what I found over time, especially in, I think everybody struggles through this. Well, I'm not passionate about it. Like, it's just a job. Like, should I just continue with this job that I don't really feel strongly about? Yeah. But I think the real question is, does God ask you and call you to do it? Irrespective of how you personally feel. I mean, God obviously knows us. He gave us those passions. Sure. And He knows like the way we tick and what makes us really feel alive. Sure. But what He asks us to do is not always what we think we want to do. So good. And you only find out what He has in store for you if you do what He asks you to do.
So good. So it's about obedience. Absolutely. And obedience can be hard when it doesn't look like what we're necessarily jazzed up to do all the time. But it's like I use the example of children because that's just the most upfront thing for me. But when we ask our children, to go and put on their shoes when they rather be watching a show or rather be doing something else because we have to leave, they may not want to do that, but they're called to do it, to be obedient to that, even though they're not like jumping at the bit to go and do that. Right. But that's what they've been called to do. And in that same way, that's how our Heavenly Father sees us. He asks us to be obedient. He sees things that we don't see. He's got the master plan, the puzzle pieces. You talk about that in the blog, about how we're all a part of the puzzle. And He knows what the end result looks like. But we're just called to do what we have in front of us and to play our part. Yeah.
And I think there's sometimes people ask, well, why does God ask me to do this? Like, why doesn't He let me do like what I really want to do or open those doors? And I think sometimes there's no answer to that question. Yeah. God doesn't tell you why, and I think sometimes even if He did tell us, we wouldn't understand. That's part of serving a sovereign, omnipotent God. And so what He's interested in at all times is our obedience, because that is a way that we build our relationship with Him.
So good, Cindy. I love that. So let's shift gears a little bit into kind of the working outside of the home mom versus working inside of the home mom. Notice I don't say stay at home mother. I'm trying to change the narrative because you are still working in the home. But I do want to address this kind of working at home mom versus working in the home mom, because it's out there, right? Yeah. We can all say that this conversation is out there, and so I definitely want to address it while having you here with me. Studies show that 71% not studies show, but right now the current trend is that 71% of women, moms, are working outside of the home. And so there's also books out there like Sheryl Sandberg's book called Lean In, where she talks about, in order for us to break the glass ceilings that are in the workplace, that women must work in the home. There's all these data points, right? There's all these stats out there. Yeah. Do those matter in how we relate to one another? And do you feel as if that's kind of helping the narrative of pointing to our purpose?
Yeah, I think all of those things and perspectives are helpful as a data point to understand, what impact do my decisions have in society? What are the overall trends, and what does that mean for society at large? I think that's part of our responsibility as Christians to understand what that is. But just because you are taking in the data and those perspectives doesn't mean you adopt the values that underlie them. So good. I think you can concede that Sheryl Sandberg's right. If moms don't work, how do they advance in the workplace? How do you break the glass ceiling? But not feel like that, okay, now that's on me, or that's my value, or I adopt that, instead of just really saying, well, what does God call me to do? I think it always has to come back to that. And it's important not to adopt the labels, or like the categorization that the world uses for data to apply to us as individuals.
Sure. And something that we talked about offline was also, this can be just a way that the devil can divide us. Like, you work outside the home, I work inside of the home. But that doesn't mean that what you do is more valuable than what I do. Or if you're even comparing two different vocations. Oh, well, you're a lawyer and she's a teacher.
Yes.
And therefore there's one that has more value. Like, I think that the devil can sometimes use those comparison and the lies that surround comparison to keep us from our purpose.
Yeah, and I think it's, you can let it alienate you, which is sort of what the devil would do, or you can let it enrich you, which is what the church is meant to do, right?
Yes.
We talked about this too, that the church is one of the few places really in the world today where you meet people who are not like you. Yes. They could be from a different culture, a different age or generation, which is increasingly rare in the U.S., different education. But we're all here for a purpose.
That's
and
right.
you build relationships, and you learn, like, the world is much bigger than you and your life and sort of your daily concerns.
Right. It's more, it ain't just about you.
Yeah,
is what I'm saying.
exactly.
No, we need each other, and being different is fine and okay. That's like what God wants. We're not robots, you know? And I think sometimes we kind of got to get out of our heads on that one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so with the working mom thing, if we go back to that, a lot of working outside of the home moms feel guilt. They feel this guilt of being away from their children. Number one, do you feel that way? And two, if not, particularly guilty about working outside of the home as it relates to, like, time, right? So you're at work maybe more than you're with your children. If you're not feeling guilty about that, are there other areas that you feel guilty about as it relates to being a working outside of the home mom?
Yeah, I think a lot of moms who work outside the home, part-time or full-time, do feel that guilt, and it's very real, and it kind of, it can be with you all the time, or just unexpectedly. For me personally, I didn't feel guilty going back to work, in part because that's what I felt God was asking me to do, and He had given me this career, and He provided for my children. But I think the other things that really are difficult for me to think about or just kind of navigate on a daily basis is not just how much time am I spending with my kids versus time spending at work, but the type of time and the type of care you give. Am I being attentive? Am I being thoughtful? Am I seeking to understand my children instead of just kind of getting through the day with them? I think we said, like, time is not the only currency. There are other ways that you build a relationship with a person, and you can feel, I think what's difficult for me is you can feel the demands in every direction and just feel like I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough with my kids. I'm not doing enough at work. I'm not doing enough, like, as a citizen or as a sister, just like whatever, like, standard that you hold yourself to. Yeah. And there are two things that have really helped me when I feel that burden and kind of that expectation and fear. And the first thing is to rest. And so I think rest is not just, how you typically think of it, which is like you take time off, you go to the spa, you go to the beach, like you like totally chill out.
All those things are
nice. Yeah, I would like this as well.
I would like those right now, actually.
But rest, specifically to rest from the thing that you are working at. So in the Bible it says on the seventh day God rested, not just period, but He rested from the work that He was doing. And for me, to rest is to let go of that thing that you were doing. So when I'm playing with my kids, not to keep on thinking, am I spending enough time with them? Do I need to play better with them? Should we play a different game? Would that be more fun? But just to let it be, and along with that, let yourself be. And the same way at work, I'm writing a memo, like, it could be better. I could stay up all night and work at it. But to rest specifically from that work. And I think that's really important. It's a form both, especially when you look at the way God rested, not only of trusting that whatever I did, like, that's enough, and God, God comes in and does the rest. Sure. But also taking joy in a thing. You can't really enjoy it and let it have a life apart from yourself unless you let it go, and not try to control it. So I think that's the first thing. And then the second thing is to, when I have all these thoughts, like, should I do this, should I do that? Like, am I doing enough? Is to simplify and ask, what is it God would have me to do? That's the only thing you need to do, is what God asks you to do.
That's right.
And to put away all those other thoughts that come from the outside or come from yourself, your own expectations of yourself, and to understand the only thing that matters is what God has said and what God expects of me. And I think that can be hard because it means you have to take time. You have to be honest with yourself. And only when you kind of whittle all the noise away can you really talk to God and say, okay, like, this is what I need help with. Or, okay, like, this is what I hear you saying. So I think those are the two things for me that have been really helpful.
So
resting specifically from the thing I'm working at, and to ask, what is God actually asking me to do?
So good, Cindy. I love that. So, at our church, our local church here, I mention it all the time because that's just what we do, and we love our church. But, one of our values is that vocation is sacred. And so, kind of going along with that value that we both obviously believe in, since we're going to a church that says this, why is vocation sacred? Why does what I do, what you do, what the next woman do, like, why does that matter?
Yeah. I mean, sacred means that it is unto God, right? And whatever you do, in whatever way you do, like, Paul tells us, you can do it unto God.
Yes.
And so, to me, it kind of goes back to what we're saying about obedience, that God calls us to do different things, but if you do it for his sake, and through it seek him and understand him and enjoy him, then that's all that is required, and that's what's important. I think our world, focuses a lot on output. Are you achieving? Are you producing? But the Bible says God looks at the heart, not at the appearance of man. And what he wants is for your heart to be refined and changed. And through whatever path he's leading you, that's where he's taking you.
I love that, Cindy. I love that. So, okay, so rapid fire to end us off here.
Okay.
Finish these statements. God is
faithful.
Okay. And all of our vocations matter because
we are his hands and feet in this world, and we are building heaven until it comes.
And all of us are better when we
pray.
I love it. Thank you for being with me.
Thank you.
Yeah. For more information on Cindy's story and to read her blog posts, visit us at allofus, OLIVE, us.net, and we will see you next time.